Alright, welcome to another episode of Pickle's Garage. So, today I am looking into a broken window here. So you can see it's super loose, and basically what happens is at one point your window will just wind itself down and it won't be able to go up. You can hear on the motor when you turn it on and you use the switch, it'll kind of sound a little bit like grinding. So I had this issue on this door, and I just went ahead and bought the motor for it and just replaced it, and obviously that solved the issue. This one I'm gonna see if I just went off the tracks or something at some point, and I'm gonna see if I can try and get it back on the tracks. Otherwise the rest of the video will be me after I've already purchased the motor for it and fixing it. Either way, the title will kind of give up what exactly ends up happening, but if I am able to fix it, then I'll give you just some quick hacks on getting that fixed. So let's dive into it. So step one is there's going to be a lot of like plastic bits that just kind of hold the paneling on here, but there's always going to be a screw right down there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this screw, and then it looks like because this panel isn't even fully on it, I'm guessing this might have been replaced, because the one that I fixed on that door was definitely an aftermarket part. They just replaced it with a really cheap one, and so I'm wondering if they did the same thing with this one and then they just got garbage parts or something. So let me start to pull this off. I may need my other hand, so I'll probably jump ahead in the video here. So I got this most of the way off. You can see those plastic pieces I was telling you about. They basically just kind of friction hold it. There is one more screw over here by the door handle, and it appears to be a star. You can see it focus. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that off real quick. Alright, so now that the star is removed, then the rest of this kind of opens up, and so you'll see some things are going to be attached here. You're gonna have to just kind of carefully remove. So there's some of these like locks here. Of course I wasn't showing it. So there's some of these locks here that basically you just pinch like that sideways and it just pops off, and then you can lift it up like that. So there's another one here. And just move it aside like that, and then you can lift it up. And then you'll know which is which. Like obviously one is for the handle, and then one is going to be, it'll pop back and forth like this. And that's going to be your lock. So this part, this electrical, that'll just be kind of like a clip. And so I'm probably going to need my other hand for that, but you basically just pinch it and pop it off. So let me do that real quick. Alright, so looked into it further, and there's definitely no fixing it. I looked kind of inside the door and found some plastic parts that I knew were kind of essential to this thing functioning, so I ended up buying a new one. Like I said, they're fairly cheap. I mean, this one I got for like 38 bucks. And so honestly, you could probably try and tinker with it, but it's going to be just easier to just replace it. So I'm going to go ahead and go over everything you need to know to replace it, as well as common issues that you're going to find. If you have the same issue that I had, where basically the window just rolls itself down at some point, then what that means is the cable itself is detached from what it needs to be, or the cable broke. So that actually makes it easier, because you can lift up and drop the window as needed to kind of get a better angle on removing some pieces. If you have a simply burnt out motor, it might be a little bit more difficult, just because it'll be like hard in place. And so I'll kind of go over a couple different tips for each of those. But the common issue that you're going to see, and this is on another one I replaced, because I did replace the front ones, which by the way are a little bit more expensive. They're like $100 as opposed to this being like 38. And the common issue is there's cables that run through this black piece, which is just the other side of that, right? And the cables come through and they get hooked between this black piece and the wheel, and then, you know, eventually it locks up and it just breaks. So it breaks from different plastic pieces on this where the cable is actually running. And so that's the common issue that you're gonna find. The other reason I want to show this to you is to kind of see the teeth here. So there are different ones that you can buy that are just the, you know, metal part, white plastic, cables, and then it goes into this thing, and it doesn't actually have the motor. I think it's like a few dollars cheaper in some cases, and so definitely not worth it. Always get the one that comes with the motor, because sometimes the teeth are different. And so, you know, you might have bought the whole assembly and the teeth look like this, but then, you know, the motor that you have doesn't have the same teeth, and then you're gonna have to end up changing out the wheel or something. It's just gonna cause problems. So did want to mention that real quick. But as far as disassembly, fairly easy. Every you know, bolt that you're gonna see essentially is gonna be what you interact with. These are all 10 millimeter, right? And so it makes like a T. And so the way I've laid it out is actually how it's gonna look exactly when it goes up in, right? And so you're gonna want the motor plate facing this way, okay? And that's gonna be right here. So this looks like at some point it was replaced, and so this one has Phillips, yours might not, but either way, these are also 10 millimeter. So the other thing is the clip is right here, and basically you just pinch that and you're gonna drop that out. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect this. I'm gonna disconnect this, leave it kind of hanging, and then I'm gonna start disconnecting these, and I'm going to remove that white plate. So the tools that you will need for this removal, like I said, 10 millimeter ratchet, extension for comfort, the Phillips screwdriver and the star screwdriver we use to take off the panel, right? This screwdriver standard is going to be for the retaining clips, and I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. You could also use some needle nose pliers. Like I said, in most cases your cable is going to be broken, and so the window itself will kind of move freely in your hands. And so if that is the case, you're better off just because you can drop it to where you have a better view of that retaining clip, in which case you'd have, you know, a better angle to pop it off with this. But if you have a situation where everything's locked up, you're probably going to need something more like this just so you can get a good angle on it. But it's going to depend on your situation. If any of these break off, then you might need some of these. Basically this is just those furniture clips or interior clips or whatever you want to call them, just so you could pop them off. And some of the packs you get like extra parts, you know, extra retaining clips, extra these. The front one I bought did come with, the rears did not, but always save these for your other projects. If it doesn't come with it, you can buy them in packs. They're actually fairly cheap, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so I've now removed everything on the motor, so these three, and let it kind of hang freely, and then disconnected this. Again, you just pinch this and it will pop right down. Boom, like that. So now the motor is free. And the last thing is you're gonna want to try and wedge the window again, just in case your window is actually free sliding, and get a good look at those retaining clips, which are just here on the plastic part, and that's where you're gonna try and get that standard screwdriver in between and then just pop them out. So if your window is able to slide, then you can slide this down once you've removed your wedge. I found that the one on the left is easiest in this window, and then the one on the right is going to be easier down here. I actually poked through here one time. But you'll just pop those off, and then once you do, you just kind of push your thumb and your fingers to just kind of slide it, and then they'll just kind of pop apart. and then you can undo these last 3. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect the window real quick, and then I'll show you the final part to getting it out. Alright, so mine is locked up, so I had to use kind of like a little shorty screwdriver, but got the retaining clips off, and then you'll see white piece is no longer connected, and that's kind of that black nub right there. Boom, that's what pops in place. So now that this is all disconnected, I just wedge this back up in my cardboard, and then I'm gonna go ahead get this pulled out. Boom. Let's see if I can do this one hand. But basically, you'll just pull this out this way. I'm gonna use 2 hands so I don't mess up my speaker, but then I'll show you installation of this piece. Again, the most important part is that plate will face outwards. You're not gonna be able to spin it once it's in it, so just make sure that you kind of have it in that shape as you're sliding it in. Okay, so I have the new one in, so basically you just have to kind of shove in the motor first, and then like I said, you'll kind of go at that angle. The actual door will have these circles cut out, and so that way you can kind of start a couple bolts on the top and the bottom here, and then that'll help you line up the T. So what I'm going to do is, at first I started those, and then I'm going to focus on getting the motor mounted here. And so you'll see that it has that silver piece that sticks out, the actual motor, and that's the kind of angle that it's going to be on. So you see that shape right there? That's what you're going to follow when you mount that. So I'm going to mount the motor, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in, and then I'm going to connect the glass to the actual white piece. So you'll have the retaining clips already in there, and it will just snap in place. Okay? Okay, so I got my motor mounted. I have it all plugged up, and then I have the lower and the 2 upper bolts connected. So now you're gonna remove your little wedge, so that way you can raise and lower the window to where you need to be. So again, because it's actually functional now, the motor itself is gonna be locked in place, and so I'm gonna have to bring the window down to that position. They put it like that specifically so that you have plenty of access here, but obviously the other side is going to be a little bit more difficult. What I will say is, if you're not able to get the other side with it in this position, and say you need it like lowered to try and access it through this window, it is really small, but maybe that's what you're thinking. You're not actually going to be able to operate the window even from the front, even if you have buttons up there, because it's going to need to be plugged in. So you'll have to re-plug in your actual side liner in order for the window mechanism to actually function. At least that's how it is on mine. So keep that in mind. You know, try and get it with it as is, you know, just so you don't have to deal with the pain of kind of, because you're going to have literally this much room. And then, you know, if your idea is to roll it down and then pull it back off, you can do that, but it's just going to take some time. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the one side, see if I can get the other side. If I can get the other side, great. If I can't, I will let you know what I end up doing to try and get around this issue. All right, so like I said, this side, super easy to pop in. I just kind of pinched it with this hand, right? The other side actually was able to reach. There is a slightly wider gap here. And so I was able to stick this arm this way and go through and push it. I do have kind of skinnier arms. So, you know, it worked for me. You might be able to get like a tool or something, get some leverage, but you can kind of line it up with this hole here and then look through. It's super dark, so you can't really make it out, but basically I looked through that hole to line it up, and then like I said, I stuck my arm through and pushed it. So now the window is connected, all the mechanisms are connected, so now I'm going to be replacing the door panel back on, and then like I said, for which of these is which, if you pull it and it just kind of makes that noise. This is the door handle. Okay, if you pull this, makes that noise and kind of has that super clean. That's the door lock. So obviously, you know, they're different lengths and they'll do different things if you don't connect them properly, but just an at a glance, door lock. Okay, so I can go ahead and start kind of doing reverse order. So I'm gonna try and plug in first, then I'll connect, and then I'll do this screw. I'll try and push in all of the interior kind of clips, and then I'll do the star. And then we'll test it out. Also on this channel, I like to show you the right way to do things, but I also want to show you the right way to do things wrong if you need to. So these yellow clips are pretty fragile, especially if your Jeep is older, and they break off fairly easily. You can buy new ones, they're pretty cheap, but if you don't want to wait on them, basically you just get 2 zip ties. And so there's a hole in the bottom one here. And so, there you go. There's a hole in the bottom one, so you do 1 zip tie, make a loop, and then loop on the top, and then interlock them, tighten, cut it off, and you are good to go. So, there you go, tech tip. Alright, so got the screw there, and the star back here. Doop. Pressed in all the fittings here, so good to go, good to test out. Woo, good to go. All right, thank you for watching.